y'all, welcome back to another episode of In the Kitchen with Baker Girl. Thank you, Jesus. It is another beautiful day to be in the kitchen. Now, we've all been outside. We've all seen it. The grass is growing, the flowers are blooming, and it is time for those delicious fruit-based spring desserts. And what could be more delicious than a strawberries and cream Victoria sponge cake? I'm going to share that recipe with you today. Don't forget to like and subscribe and follow along so you won't miss out anytime I upload a video. And today's recipe will be included in the description below this video. Stay tuned. Now, the most exciting thing about a Victoria sponge cake is it is always equal proportions of flour, butter, sugar, and eggs. And with that, you can do anywhere from 2 layers to 6 layers to 100 layers. Just keep in mind, everything must be equal. So as today, everything is going to be 225 grams because I'm not making a gigantic cake. But if I wanted to make larger layers or more layers than 2 layers or multiple cakes, you can go anywhere from 400 grams to 500 grams to a kilogram. Just keep going depending on, or you can go down. You can go to 100 grams and make a tiny cake. 100 grams of flour, 100 grams of butter, 100 grams of eggs, and 100 grams of sugar. This is a great cake for beginners. Now, having said all of that, because the proportions depend on the metrics and not on volume versus ounces and grams, as opposed to cups and, like half a cup. This is a cake where you will need a baking scale because when you go out of metrics, it becomes more complicated. So my suggestion is get a scale. And for a lot of my recipes, I suggest that you use a scale anyway. But for this cake, definitely, this is a European cake. So the Europeans use the metric system, whereas here in the United States, we're used to cups and ounces and so forth. But I will leave a detailed recipe in the description below the video. So the first thing to do is to portion and weigh out my butter. Now, this is homemade churned butter that I showed you how to do in my home churned video. My home churned butter video that didn't quite go the way I was expecting. Anyway, I will leave a link to that video in the iCards right here. But the thing to do is to go ahead and portion out the butter. So I am going to, and my butter is at slightly soft room temperature. So I'm going to place my bowl on my scale. And as usual, it's super bright in the kitchen today. It's always bright this time of day in the kitchen, but that's fine. Okay, so just go ahead and portion out my butter. Need a little bit more, not too much. And this butter is so good, you can just about, I'm not going to say eat it with a spoon, but it's good butter, and the color is beautiful too. Okay, so we are at 229 grams. I think we can spare that little extra butter. However, if you were doing a large batch of this, you definitely want to make sure you keep your proportions because those extra 4 grams does start to count up. So, right. So, and that's all I need of the scale because everything else is already properly portioned. So I'm just going to set my scale aside. Now, my butter, yeah, it's soft enough. Just checking to make sure the butter is nice and soft. If you need to, you can just bash it a little, but there's no need. This is nice and soft because I took it out of the fridge earlier. Now, there are 2 ways to do this cake. You can do an all-in-one method, which is literally dump everything into this bowl and blend it up, mix it up, and then pour it into your cake tin. That is super, super easy. I prefer a creaming method. An all-in-one method can curdle, and you can also kind of overmix the flour because the eggs and the butter still needs to be properly mixed. And so if you add everything in there, the flour is starting to work while you're also trying to get the butter and the eggs to a nice, and the sugar to a nice homogeneous blend. So you can do it all in one, but just know that an all-in-one batter can be a teeny bit tricky. If you're gonna be mixing a cake anyway, it's okay to pull out a mixer and do it in steps. But if you are in a super hurry, you can totally do the all-in-one mix. That is more popular, I think, in England than it is here in the United States. We're more of a creaming cake society than an all-in-one. But as I say, all-in-one is super easy. If you want to go for the all-in-one method, go for it. So I'm going to go ahead. I've got my butter, and then I'm going to go ahead and add in my sugar. And to keep things speeded along, I'm going to go ahead and add in my vanilla extract as well. So add in vanilla extract. I use about, well, all of it, I guess. But really, you want at least 2 teaspoons. And to give this cake a nice old-fashioned flavor, I'm going to add in about a half a teaspoon of almond extract. I like almond extract. It's very, it gives your cake a quaint flavor. And because I'm using eggs, and I'm using 4 eggs, which is 200 grams, and I need 225 grams. So to help the texture of the cake and also to replace that missing amount of egg, because I'm missing 25 grams, I am just going to add in 2 tablespoons of canola oil. But if you can add in a half an egg, that's perfectly fine. But before I add the oil, I'm going to go ahead and cream together my butter and my sugar and my vanilla extract. Okay, and before I get too happy and forget, I'm going to go ahead and add in my 2 tablespoons of canola oil. That will keep the batter more moist and fluffier a little longer, because the vegetable oil keeps any cake batter moister than just using straight butter. And also, if you cut this cake straight from the fridge, it will be a little softer. If you cut an all butter cake straight out of the fridge, it's going to be very hard and it'll taste like a dry cake until it comes to room temperature. So I always tell people, when you cut a butter cake, take it out and let it sit out for, maybe like half an hour. Give the cake time to, give it time to start to warm up a little bit. But in this case, since I'm adding vegetable oil or canola oil, because I don't use vegetable oil, it will be a little bit softer. So I'm just going to go ahead and mix that in. Now I'm going to go ahead and add in my eggs. Now I'm using the eggs that I showed you how to freeze eggs. Well, I'm using those eggs, and as you can see, I put them in a bowl of cold water straight out of the freezer, and then I just let them thaw straight out of the freezer like that. They thaw better if you put them in cold water, but as you can see, this is the eggs, and they are nice and they're a little cold, but that's okay. Obviously, we don't want warm eggs hanging out. And I'm just going to pour these right into the batter. Now, this is going to help prevent the batter from curdling because the eggs are already mixed. If you're using whole eggs that, you're not using your frozen eggs, just crack them into a bowl and give them a whisk before you pour them into your butter and sugar mixture. Done. And just mix them in. Now I'm going to go ahead and add in, I have salt, and I have baking powder. If you're using self-rising flour or self-raising flour, it'll already have baking powder and salt in it. It should. Always check the bag just to make sure. I'm going to go ahead and tip in all of my flour and then just mix it in. Slowly. Now I can see right off the bat, before I even mix all of this in, I can see I'm going to need a little bit of milk. So I'm going to add in a couple of tablespoons of my homemade buttermilk that I showed how in my homemade butter video. Whenever you're making butter, you always have the liquid that separates, which is real buttermilk. I'm going to add some of that into the cake just to help loosen up the batter a little bit because it's a little too stiff right now. If you don't have homemade buttermilk, you can also add in some regular whole milk. Be perfectly fine. You don't need much, just enough to help loosen the batter up a little. This looks so good. And as you can see, the batter did not curdle. And this is what it's called, a dropping consistency. If you see that in the recipe where it says mix until you get a dropping consistency, well, that is exactly what that is. So now I'm just going to divide this between my two 8-inch cake tins. And the best way to divide the cake batter evenly is to use a scale, which is exactly what I'm going to do. So just divide this between the two. Now, an original Victoria sponge does call for, and by the way, this will make fairly tall sponges, but if you want to, you can divide this up and make it. By the way, I think I said 8-inch. I am actually using a 6-inch cake rounds today, not my 8-inch. But you can totally use 8-inch rounds. It'll just be slightly thinner. But back to what I was saying. An original Victoria sponge cake calls for baking spread, which in the United States, we would probably refer to that as margarine, although they could be slightly different. But I don't use margarine, so I am using butter. And also, that is another reason why I added in the bit of vegetable oil, because margarine is made out of oils instead of butter. So adding in that little bit of vegetable oil will kind of sort of give you a slight margarine texture anyway. Another way you can do that is to just use slightly softer butter than you would normally use. So instead of a butter that's right around 70 degrees, you might want to go with the butter that's right around 80 degrees. And that'll give you that very soft butter consistency. All right. Now I'm just going to smooth these out. Thank you, scale. Thank you, bowl. You both have done a great job today. I'm just going to smooth these out. Make sure they bake evenly. This is one of those cakes if you have company coming and you've no idea what you might want to make, but you know you want to make something. You've got a few strawberries, you've got some whipped cream, you've got some butter, some sugar, some eggs. You can whip this up very, very quickly, and in no time at all, you can have a beautiful springtime dessert on your table. So I'm going to go ahead and put these in the oven, and I'm going to bake them at 350 degrees or 176 degrees Celsius. And I'm going to bake them until a cake texture comes out clean and they are nice and golden brown. Into the oven she goes. Okay, so the cakes are out the oven and I've got them sitting back there cooling. They're looking delicious. Now I'm just whipping a little whipped cream, making a little whipped cream for the cake. You can use buttercream for this. You can use a blend of whipped cream and mascarpone cream. But I'm just going to use regular, lightly sweetened whipped cream. I did add just a little powdered sugar to it. I don't want it to be very sweet. Just enough sweetness so you can know, you got a little sweetened whipped cream in there. Okay. Just about done. And we've got nice soft peaks. You don't want to over whip it. If you over whip it, you'll end up with butter, which will be delicious, but not what we want today. So I'm going to set this aside and get ready for the cakes. All right. set my cakes there, and I have just a small cake board on my turntable. And here are the cakes, nicely cooled, and they look good. Now, you can trim your cakes if you wish. I don't. Some cakes I do, but these I'm not going to trim just because I'm not fussy about the caramelization on it. But if it bothers you, you can trim them off. Also, if you notice, I'm not leveling the underside of my cakes because my cakes are level. Okay, now here I have my homemade strawberry sauce that I showed you how to do in my yogurt parfaits video. If you haven't watched the video, I will leave a link in the iCards so you can check that video out. And the recipe for the strawberry sauce is also in that video. So I'm just going to spoon a little bit of my strawberry sauce right on the top. And there is no need to worry about the strawberry sauce oozing out of the edge because this is kind of like a freeform cake. It's going to ooze a little. The best way to ensure though that it doesn't over ooze is don't go all the way to the edge. And once you put the top layer on, there's going to be some squishes occurring, but you can minimize the squishies by making sure that your strawberry sauce is cold and you don't spread it all the way to the edge. Otherwise, it's just going to ooze out. Now I'm going to add some fresh whipped cream on top. All right, so freshly whipped cream. And I'm just going to dollop that right on top. And you can go as heavy or as light as you want in the whipped cream. I think I'm going to go a little on the light side. You don't want to overdo it. And if you notice, the strawberries is already heading towards the edge. All right, now just dollop your whipped cream right on top of the cake. Ooh, this is going to be so good. Just give it a little teeny spread out. You don't need to go all the way to the edge. Another dollop more. And then I'm going to ripple just a little bit of this berry sauce right in. Just give it a little ripple. Just a little ripple right in, just like that. Don't overdo it or you'll lose that prettiness. And just add another little dollop on it to keep it nice and neat. There we are. And now I'm going to top it with some fresh strawberries. And I'm leaving the stems on because I think the stems look nice and pretty. Just a few. Oh, that looks so good. And to top it all off, I've got some tiny yellow flowers that I'm just going to tuck right around. Just because it's spring. And so we can bring some of the spring colors into the kitchen. Finishing touch on this cake. I know, I gotta stop myself. I have a tiny little edible butterfly that I'm going to put right on. Oh, let's see. Let's put it right here. And I've got another one, which is a little larger. Let's see here. That one's yellow. I think I'll use this one. These are beautiful. I love these little edible. They are not waterproof or moisture proof. I have had the best of time making this cake, and I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you have, please give it a thumbs up and save it because the recipe is included in the description box below. So the next time you have company or unexpected friends or family or a get-together, you can whip up this easy, simple Victoria sponge cake, and you can top it with all kinds of berries. Here I've used strawberries, but you can use blueberries, you can use raspberries, blackberries, peaches would be delicious to this Georgia girl. Whatever you choose to do, I know you'll enjoy this cake recipe. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and the good Lord willing, I'll see you guys again in another video. Take care, y'all. Bye.